Good evening, everyone. We're going to start our public testimony. These are the ground rules, so to speak. We're here this evening to hear from you about the proposed budget and where you believe the city should focus its spending priorities to ensure that there is an opportunity for everyone here to be heard this evening. Certain ground rules have been established as follows. I'm reading the script. It will be helpful. Your testimony really should be focused on the budget and proposed spending priorities because this is an official hearing on budget-related issues. Copies of the budget are available on the table at the back of the room where you signed in. All speakers must sign up in order to testify. If you have not already signed up, you need to do so now by signing your name in the list at the same table. Your name will be called in the order in which you signed up. You will have up to 3 minutes to speak in order to be fair, and because we have such an extensive list, we're going to ask you to please comply with the 3-minute list. All right? And if you have any written testimony, you can please submit that, and we'll make sure that it's a part of the record because some of you may have more information that you're able to get in within the 3-minute time frame. So when the timer goes off, your 3 minutes will be up, and we ask that you please comply with the rules because we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak this evening. So I want to thank you very much for your cooperation and your willingness to come and be a part of your government. First up, we have Moses Smucker, Elizabeth Hill, and Ibrahima Kelta. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, hold on, I'm going to call a couple other individuals. Councilwoman Parker, Chair recognizes you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to just let you know, Mr. President, and our colleagues, I'm going to be leaving now. We have a budget briefing and town hall meeting in the 9th District, but I wanted to thank members of the public who did come to testify today.
Thank you, Councilwoman. It shall be reflected in the quorum. So can we ask Luis Ventura? Right here. Is that Luis Ventura? That's you? Thank you. And let me get Christy Benjamin. Christy Benjamin? Okay. I'm sorry, Ms. Hill? Yes. Okay, Elizabeth Hill? Okay. Okay, so we have Mr. Smuckler, Ventura, and Elizabeth Hill. Thank you. You can proceed. Just state your name for the record.
My name is Moses Smucker. You want any more information, or is that it? Okay. I live in Lancaster County, which you probably didn't recognize. But I have a stand at Reading Terminal Market called Smuckers. My wife and I own Smuckers at Reading Terminal Market. I'm here because I'm concerned about the sugar tax. Our soda business dropped about 20%. I didn't research it too close, but about 20%. My business increased much more than that, but the sodas went down. I'm also concerned about sugar tax being an avenue of taxation for the government that I'm not sure where it'll end, and I'm not sure if it's going to be too good. Where it does end, for business in Philadelphia. I also am concerned about people coming into Philadelphia and not coming back because the prices are too high. Sodas is recognizable as a price object, and it's not really a good idea to have it so high. And the businessman will pass the 30 cents on a 20-ounce Coke, and that's excessive, I think. And I'm not sure if that's where you want to go, but if that's where you want to go. And I was also concerned about where the money goes. Just as a layman, I was told it goes to the pre-K, which is basically infants, and I think the money should be spent in creating a safe environment for infants at home. So if you want to give money to anybody, try to create a marriage counseling type of thing. That's just my own opinion. Having the government having infants, I don't think is a good idea because it creates, the government is now a daycare center. That's only my opinion.
We appreciate your opinion. That's why we're here. We want to hear what you have to say about your tax dollars. Thank you so much for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Ma'am.
Yo no hablo inglés.
Pull the mic up a little closer.
We got a translator.
You need a translator?
Yeah.
You have one?
Can we sit down?
And
Sí. Mi nombre es Ana y vengo en representación de la bodega de 2012 de Ridge Avenue, de Luis Ventura.
My name is Anna. I'm coming to represent. My name is Anna. I'm coming to represent the bodega on 212 Ridge Avenue on behalf of her son, Luis Ventura.
Yes.
go ahead.
Estoy aquí por el problema de los tases de la soda, que le ha afectado mucho a la bodega de Luis y creo que a las demás también, porque muchos de los clientes van a comprar y cuando se encuentran con el aumento que tienen los tases, pues han tenido que dejar la mercancía. Por esa...
I'm here in regards to the beverage tax. It's hurting my business and I believe many of the businesses in Philadelphia. When the customers come to the counter with their purchases and they see the price of the beverage, they leave their items at the counter and leave.
Por ejemplo, hoy yo estaba en la caja y va una señora a comprar, a hacer una pequeña compra y yo le he sacado ya toda la cuenta y ella busca una soda de la que está marcada a 1.39.
For example, today a woman came in to make her purchases. She brought her items to the counter. She also brought a soda that's marked at 1.39.
Cuando yo marco 2.40, que es lo que se están vendiendo ahora con los tases, pues ella me dice que por qué el aumento. Y yo le dije que esos son los tases de la soda. Y me dijo que ella no iba a pagar más de lo que cuesta la soda. Aunque yo le enseñé el SAI que está puesto allá, ella me dejó toda la mercancía y se fue.
Once I added the tax and it totaled $2.40, the woman was upset and asked why she was paying that when it was $1.39. She pointed to a sign on the wall that shows that the beverage tax is being implemented. The woman got upset, left all her items there, and left without purchasing anything.
Y yo considero que como sucedió eso en la bodega de nosotros, también ese mismo problema está sucediendo en varias bodegas. Hay muchos bodegueros que tienen ese mismo problema.
And since that happened today in her store, she believes that it's happening all over Philadelphia in many of the different stores.
Porque muchos de los clientes dicen, no, que en New Jersey está más barato, no sé por qué ustedes la tienen así, pero uno se cansa de decirle que los tases es solamente en esa zona, pero ellos no entienden.
Many of the customers will claim or tell her that taxes are a lot lower in New Jersey, and that they go and make their purchases there, and she's getting tired of having to explain to the customers that the tax is just in Philadelphia and it's being imposed on by the city.
Ya, pues no tengo más que decir. Gracias, darle las gracias.
And that's all she has to say, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. You want to do it here? Come on. It's either or. Yours, sir.
That's okay with you. Oh, we got one, sir. Thank you. If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to stand. I feel a little bit short. Can I stand? Liz is asking.
Whatever you want. You can go sit down, or you can sit here.
I'll stand, thank you. My name is Elizabeth Hill, and I'm deaf. I'm a member of the Mayor's Commission for People with Disabilities here in Philadelphia. And I'm here this evening, and I'm here to advocate for the Mayor's Commission on Disabilities, that they should have their own funding and more staff. They should have an independent part of Philadelphia. They just only have 2 staff, and that's really impossible for 2 people to make the entire city of Philadelphia accessible and equal for all people who have a disability. 2 staff cannot accomplish that goal. And just to give you an example, the city of Chicago, their commission, they have 26 staff members. In Philadelphia, we could do better than we're doing. And I'm hoping, and the budget and the opportunity I have tonight to speak to advocate, that the Commission for People with Disabilities can get more funding. Also, the office really, really needs a deaf and hard of hearing specialist. The city of Philadelphia is very large and has a very large deaf and hard of hearing community. And communication is very complex and very needed here in Philadelphia, and it needs to improve. And we need a person who can really focus on the needs of the deaf community in the Philadelphia area, and the commission office can take care of that if they had a specialist. There's various communication barriers, and we're not included in many conversations, many budget discussions, various accessibility issues. And it tends to often focus on architecture, sidewalks, bathrooms, buildings, elevators, things like that, and we're often not included in those conversations because our need is communication, but that's really the foundation of where everything comes from, is communication. So I thank you for the opportunity tonight to speak.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. Cool. Next up, we have Christy Benjamin. Christy Benjamin. Asif Badat. Asif Badat. And here. Vincent Rodriguez. Ravel Swaret, I'm sorry. Okay. Jose Murrell. Jose Murrell. Mohammed Salih. Mohammed Salih. Okay. Jose Jimenez. Jose Jimenez. Javier Garcia. Javier. Mohammed Bouyan. Sorry if I screwed that up. Mohammed Bouyan. Christiana Brown. Ms. Brown.
She don't want to speak.
Pardon me?
She doesn't want to speak.
Change. Okay, it's fine. Kempis Songster. Kempis, Mr. Songster. Yeah, come. And Robert Holbrook. Council, you wanted?
Few minutes. I'm going to have to leave in a few minutes, but I did want to, number one, thank everybody who came out today as well, and to hear their testimony. And for what I don't get a chance to hear this evening, I'll be making sure that I catch it this evening on public access so that I can hear everyone's testimony, because I think it's very, very important. I also wanted to acknowledge Mr. Kempis Songster, who I've had the opportunity to meet on numerous occasions at Graterford. We took a trip with the Mural Arts program a number of times, and Councilman Heenan actually joined me on one of the trips. And you know, if you haven't been, it's life-altering. Everyone should go, because this is very, very important to know what's happening up in our correctional facilities. And so I just wanted to say to Mr. Songster, I'm really happy to see you, and much wishes for success for your life and for all the things that come your way, and God bless. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Please self-select.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rafael Suarez. I'm from Dominican Republic. Like every immigrant, I came to this country for a better future. At my young age, I became a business owner, which I own a puppy store, a bodega. And probably gonna sound funny, when I finally thought that I found the American dream, it came out like a nightmare, because I just owned the business for like a year and a half when the sugar tax came in affected. And my business was doing pretty good when I first started. Now the business dropped at least 20–25% of the gross store, the gross sale, sorry. And I came here just ask for help, because in the beginning, when I heard the sugar tax was for help the school, I would say, okay, it's good because I got children. But I don't see that the school getting help. I don't know where the money's going. It's not my business to know. But my business, like everybody who got business, is getting hurt. And I see like Walmart, biggest store, getting richer. And what I think, this is my personal opinion, I think like the city pushing us to close down. Like the city don't want any corner store anymore. That's my personal opinion. So I'm here once again to ask for help. Whoever got the power to repeal this law, because heading my business, heading everybody, heading my friend, I got a lot of friends that own business, and we all crying because of the sugar tax. One of the issues that I be having most every day is the people who got the food stamp, they say we don't have to pay the sugar tax. You can look in the Google, on the website, they say they don't have to pay. But I'm paying the sugar tax when I go to wholesale and buy the sugar, the soda. I'm already paying for it. So who's gonna pay for me if they're not paying? So once again, whoever's got the power, please do something, because I don't think we're gonna succeed with this law. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony. Yes, sir. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Kempis Songster. I need to spell it. Okay.
All yours.
All right. I'm testifying today on behalf of my organization, the Amistad Law Project, as well as a member of the Coalition to Abolish Death by Incarceration and the Coalition for a Just District Attorney. The organizations I'm representing today are interested in how City Council will use its budgeting power to address issues of overcharging and excessive sentencing. In particular, costly sentences of life without parole, also known as death by incarceration. Currently, Pennsylvania has over 5,100 people serving death by incarceration sentences. More than half of those sentences or those cases are from the city of Philadelphia. In fact, Philadelphia has more people serving death by incarceration sentences than 4 other states, 45 other states, in fact, combined. The state of Pennsylvania is the second largest holder of people serving death by incarceration sentences. This is not just a human rights crisis, as this sentence is implemented nowhere else in the world, but it's a budget crisis. If Pennsylvania was to have parole for people serving life, or to parole just 1/4 of elderly incarcerated people, the state would save some $132 million a year. Now, we believe that there are things that can be done that the city could do to alleviate this crisis, and so we like to present just 2 of those. Now, the district attorney has recently indicated that the office wants to implement a functional conviction integrity unit that reviews not only claims of innocence, but cases of overcharging and excessive sentencing. For instance, people who, you might have accomplices that didn't actually commit the homicide, but was sentenced to life without parole, while the person that committed the homicide received a 3rd-degree conviction to a term of years and is now released. These disproportionate and excessive sentencing are in need of release and relief. And we believe that the conviction integrity unit may be an important and appropriate and viable way to making sure that justice is done. Will the city provide adequate funding to the district attorney office's conviction integrity unit so that it can have the staff and resources it needs to review as many cases as possible?
Right.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, one more.
One more.
All right, could you kind of...
Restorative justice is something that is very important to us as well, as we know it's important to a lot of people in the council and to the district attorney's office from the office's appointment of a restorative justice facilitator. We too want forms of justice that recognize the possibility and the importance of transformation and healing, not just for those who've committed harm, but for those who've been harmed, those who've survived violence and lost loved ones to violence. And it's our understanding that the DA's office and the Victims Witness Services Unit have different initiatives that they're pursuing in the coming years, and we want those initiatives to be supported. So will the city provide adequate funding for the victim services so that they can help nourish these restorative justice efforts? Okay. Thank you for your consideration.
Let me respond. So with respect to what we in council do as it relates to independent elected officials, which the district attorney is obviously one, budget, they will submit a budget. There will be an aggregate amount which they ask council to appropriate. Mayor's office obviously has a significant amount to do with how much the mayor recommends in his budget message and his budget document. The independent elected officials has the ability to determine the details and the inner workings of their particular department, so we don't necessarily allocate funding to a particular program within that department. Similarly, in City Council, we have a budget and then we essentially determine how we spend that budget under different classes, class 200, class 300, 400. So we will appropriate an aggregate amount to the district attorney's office in terms of how he chooses to spend that particular dollar amount is up to the district attorney's office. So it's not a direct answer to your question, but we will have the district attorney in here making a pitch for his budget. I understand that he's scheduling meetings to go around, talk to council members. We will review the budget request, and we will either support the mayor's recommended budget request, or we possibly will increase that budget request. But until we get the official ask from the district attorney, we don't know what the total amount will be on that budget. So bottom line, independent elected officials, commissioners, district attorney, sheriff, who else? Register of wills, they get to determine the specifics as it relates to the expenditures and the different divisions within their department. So, I know it's not a direct answer, but they'll be coming in, they'll be asked for money, and then we'll make a decision at the end of the budget process. But trust me, the district attorney will be asking her for money. So I'm assuming that your conversation with the district attorney on those particular issues, I'm assuming that the district attorney concurs with your request, so he'll be asking us to sign off on that budget request. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
My name is Robert.
Get a mic, please.
That's good. My name is Robert Holbrook, and I am testifying today on behalf of my organization, the Amistad Law Project, as well as a member of the advisory board of the Youth, Arts, and Self-Empowerment Project, and as a member of the Coalition to Abolish Death by Incarceration and the Coalition for a Just District Attorney. The organizations I am representing today are interested in how City Council's budget process can address critical criminal justice issues that face our city, specifically with regards to young people in the city's adult jails. Here are some questions that we hope the City Council will consider having the institutions that come before you in the coming weeks address. We know that incarcerating children in adult jails and prison is detrimental to their physical, emotional, and mental health and does not increase public safety. Young people who are under 18 who are held in pretrial Philadelphia adult county jails are routinely subjected to solitary confinement, as well as been documented by Samantha Meelan of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Children as young as 15, sometimes even younger, are regularly placed in isolation, held in their cells for 22 or 23 hours a day for weeks or months at a time. Given the many negative impacts that adult jail has on young people, why does the city continue to hold children pre-trial in adult jails instead of in an age-appropriate juvenile facility? 2, we believe that all young people under 18 who are detained while facing charges in adult court should, and under PA law, legally can be held in a juvenile facility while awaiting the outcome of their case. We believe the city has a moral imperative to remove all young people from the city's adult jails, and if they are detained pre-trial, commit to holding them in more age-appropriate facilities with other young people. As of April 2nd, there were 16 young people held in PIC and RCF, 14 young men and 2 young women. What does it cost per young person for the city to house 14 young men on a unit with bed space for 50 to 60 adults? How much closer would the city be to the population reduction it needs to close the House of Correction if we were able to house adults on E-Unit at PIC? 3, because the city decides to house young people in adult jails and is legally required to provide them with education, the School District of Philadelphia operates an entire school, the Pennypack School, for the 16 young people held on State Road. We believe there would be significant savings if young people charged as adults were held in a juvenile justice service center and able to attend the existing school at JJSC. What is the total cost of operating a Pennypack School? What is the cost per pupil of operating Pennypack School? Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your testimony. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for that testimony. I would offer, if the President will allow, a few of us on the Public Safety Committee to meet with you in advance of the prison presenting their budget to see how that presentation and their options match up to the budget, if you would, Mr. President.
Absolutely.
Is that all right?
Good, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Hold on a second, gentlemen. Councilwoman again?
Yeah, and just a note for Councilman Jones that maybe some members of the Education Committee could join you as well. We've been spending some time looking at the school district's budget that takes a look at those types of expenses and, you know, would really like to be a part of that ongoing conversation. So thank you very much for both of you, all of your testimony. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Next up, Aisha Muhammad. Aisha. And Hannah Sasaman.
said Muhammad,
Ms. Muhammad.
and he's got two more that are long. Okay, they right after her?
I'm sorry.
They're on the list right after her?
Ms. Sossaman?
What's your name?
Hannah?
Annika?
Yes, come on up. And Gus Gromner? Good evening.
Evening.
Good evening.
Self-select.
My name is Aisha Mohammed, and I'm testifying today on behalf of Project SAFE, the Philadelphia Red Umbrella Alliance, and the Coalition for a Just District Attorney. My colleagues Annika Sprow and Gus Grannon are affiliated with the same organizations, and we are here to talk about funding for the criminal justice, behavioral health, and public health systems. These are the systems that have the most impact on the individuals we work with, which includes women who use substances and engage in street-based sex work, and women and men re-entering our communities after incarceration. Over the last several decades, it has become evident that incarceration does little to deter or prevent people from using substance chaotically or engaging in street-based sex work. Data from diversion programs across the country shows that access to social services and treatment have proven to be much more effective in reducing recidivism, improving health outcomes, and saving cities money. Our budget priorities should reflect this shift, which is grounded in evidence-based research and practice. What we have observed in our work is that our participants face many barriers in accessing social services and treatment, such as high thresholds for entry into treatment programs, lack of insurance coverage, lack of transportation, and a history of negative experiences with medical and mental health care providers. Even when our participants are able to access care, they have difficulty continuing because of lack of resources such as housing. For example, one of our participants completed a 6-month drug rehab program and stabilized on methadone, only to find that there were no beds for her in recovery houses that accept people who are on medication-assisted treatment. She ended up relapsing because of the stress she experienced due to returning to being street homeless. Some of the questions that we are asking today and that we would ask council to put to the institutions focused on criminal justice, behavioral health, and public health are. These are for the police department. Since people who use substances and engage in sex work are criminalized, the criminal justice system does not have adequate protocols in place for when these same individuals become victims and survivors of crime. How much money is going into enforcing prostitution laws as opposed to investigating crimes and violence against sex workers? How much money has the city received to address human trafficking, and what portion of this will be spent on providing harm reduction-oriented victim services? Does the police department plan on reevaluating policing strategies with the new DA so resources are not wasted in arresting individuals for laws that will not be prosecuted, particularly for sex work and drug use? How much money is being allocated for trainings to ensure that police are competent in responding to mental health crises and overdoses? How much money is being allocated to evaluate the effectiveness of these trainings, and how will the findings of evaluations be available to the public?
These next questions are most directed toward the health department. In response to the growing awareness of opioid addiction for Philadelphia, what is the city's plan to make Narcan?
Sir, did you say your name for the record?
I'm sorry.
Just say your name for the record.
Gus Grannon.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry about that. To make naloxone, Narcan, more accessible in terms of quantity and price for people living with addiction and their families. Next, the cost of the hepatitis C epidemic among Philadelphia injectors will be a major factor in future city budgets. As the source of some of the most stigmatizing and chaos-causing policing around the illicit economy, is council willing and able to commit police funds, such as the federal seizure grant or its equivalent from general PPD funds, to ongoing public health measures to address and curtail HCV? And given that there are medications that are over 95% effective at eliminating hep C from the body, what resources is the Department of Behavioral Health willing to dedicate toward the epidemiological work already happening in the city? And finally, as another public health approach to hepatitis C, is Council willing to work with the AIDS Activity Coordinating Office of the Department of Public Health to remove the ban on syringe access to Philadelphians under 18 and bring its policy in line with the statewide pharmacy access guidance? One result of the city's current policy has been a sharply increased incidence of hepatitis C among Philadelphia teens. Such a change will reduce the disease burden in the city and consequently the health costs to the city in future budgets.
And these questions will be more so for the Department of Behavioral Health. And my name is Annika Sproul.
Thank you.
So in the last 18 months, it has been clear that there is an expanded need for medication-assisted therapy for people living with substance abuse and dual diagnoses disorders. What is the city's plan for increased access to medication-assisted therapy, such as Suboxone and methadone? Also, how much money is being allocated to short-term and long-term rehab stays in order to meet the needs of the growing dual diagnosis population of Philadelphia? Also, individuals are being held at the PDP for months on end waiting for referral evaluations to come through and beds at inpatient facilities to open up. These individuals pose no risk to the public and are incarcerated only because of their substance use. Are there plans to allocate funds so that these individuals can access services in a timely manner and have a quicker, more succinct reentry process? Also, currently, there is only one recovery house that allows women who use methadone and treatment for addiction, and one for transgender individuals. Does the city plan to allocate funds to create access to recovery houses and centers that allow for medication-assisted therapy, including methadone for women and transgender people? And lastly, given that housing is identified as a primary unmet need for people living with addiction and a key factor in long-term stabilization, how much funding is being allocated to initiate new Housing First programs and in which departments? Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you are aware, we took a deeper dive into some of the issues related to over-incarceration on State Road and have been somewhat successful in reducing the population on State Road. We're not done yet, but we've made substantial progress. Another part of that shoe to fall is instead of reentry, pre-entry, which I think are some of the services that they're talking about, and a shift as we start to save money on incarceration to figure out treatment programs and alternatives to incarceration and shifting some of those savings into that type of activity. So again, one of the things we're looking forward to is the details of the prison budget, the details of the district attorney's budget, and the details of the public defender's budget. All of those things kind of work towards some of the things that we can put in almost in a referral fashion for people who need treatment as opposed to being locked up in some of the negative consequences that come with that, such as homelessness, this and other things that happen to people even before they're found guilty. So what we're trying to do is work with you and work with some of those details so that in theory we're for that. Now it gets down to the budget detail of how we pay for that. And so we're looking forward to that dialogue and discussion.
Thank you, Councilman, and I want to thank you for, recently we announced the diversion program where the pilot program will be starting in the 22nd Police District and then on to the 35th, I believe, 39th, ultimately 17th. We'll go over in West Philly too. But you're absolutely correct. Front side preventive measures are always more productive, not to mention less costly. So I always encourage and thank you all for encouraging that prospect, because like you said, once a person gets in the system, it's a challenge in terms of being able to continue to achieve what they want to achieve. So thank you. Thank you again for your testimony. Before you leave, Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gim.
Yes, thank you very much, Council President. I spoke with you a little bit earlier, but thank you very much for your testimony and just wanted to encourage folks who want to continue on with a little bit of a longer discussion, that the Health and Human Services Committee is holding a public hearing tomorrow night at Cardinal Bevilacqua Center on Kensington Ave, starting at 5:30. We'll be continuing to hear testimony. We need your input. I think those questions are very valuable. It would really help if you could consider submitting it on the record in writing to all of us, and we can continue to work with our city departments and others to try and ask and follow up on many of the questions and concerns that you raised. But it's also very much appreciated, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you all so much for your testimony. Next up, we have, I hope I'm saying, Anika.
Oh, that's me.
Council
I
President?
just talked.
Oh, that was you?
Yes.
Okay.
Hannah Sussman is here.
Hannah. Oh, okay. How you doing? Hey, Hannah. How you doing, Hannah?
I'm great, sir. How are you?
Good. James Abrams. James Abrams. There you go. And Ari Mary. How you doing?
Yeah, come on.
Point man.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Please self-select.
Sure. Good evening, council members and community members. My name is Hannah Sassaman. I'm testifying today on behalf of my organization, the Media Mobilizing Project, and as a member of the No 215 Jail Coalition and the Coalition for a Just District Attorney as well. And we're here to talk about, as you've heard, the vital questions council has before it as it considers the funding for our criminal justice and public safety systems. Our courts, prisons, probation system, jails, and police comprise a massive amount of our city budget. About a quarter of fiscal year 2018 budget of over $4.4 billion is estimated to be spent just on the courts, police, prisons, and the DA's office alone. And so we have a number of different questions focused on decarceration, which is a major issue that both of our coalitions are focusing on. This question is for the Managing Director's Office, which I know already testified, but might be called back, as well as the courts. The City of Philadelphia is spending considerable resources on building a risk assessment algorithm to try to sort accused people before their trials into categories that can be safely released into the community. We're interested in council asking how instead we could invest those resources and other resources into meeting people's needs in the community for helping with things like transportation, childcare, job support to get to court. And housing, so people who are accused pre-trial can be home rather than incarcerated and also be less likely to be convicted, and adding more resources to the economy. We also have a question about how the district attorney, when they come to speak with you, plan to use its budget to continue the creation and support of robust diversion programs. Part of the way that our first judicial court and criminal justice system can save resources is to ensure timely and accessible justice by ending the practice of money bail. We're interested in council asking the courts what steps they're willing to take to end their use of money bail and how they'll hold bail commissioners accountable to that process. We're also interested in how our communities have more economic resources if our missing Black, brown, immigrant, and poor family members are home. And we're interested in how the MacArthur Safety and Justice Challenge grant process are directly addressing the concerns of over-incarceration of racial and ethnic minorities throughout the city, and how we're measuring and documenting the decrease in those disparities. We also note that we need to resource pretrial services more if we're going to be letting more people come home. Some reports show that in states working to reduce or end cash bail, like New Jersey, we see a larger budget reserved for pretrial services. We're interested in your plan for redistributing the funds from pretrial incarceration to pretrial services, especially those in our community, in community organizations that are trusted to provide those resources. And I have a few other questions that are on my written testimony, but I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your testimony, and it will be in the record. Thank you. Please proceed. State your name for the record.
Good evening. I am Minister Ari Moretazan. I'm the first Vice President of Point Man Soldier Heart Ministry. My testimony is to encourage the council, to encourage the mayor to be more patriotic and include Veterans Affairs as a line item in the city's annual budget. For too many years now, the city have not included Veterans Affairs in its annual budgets as a separate and distinct line item, including the cost for the following: a public accessible veterans grade registration record for Philadelphia, a funeral assistance for families of deceased veterans, grave markers and bronze or granite headstones for the graves of deceased veterans, proper and fitting care for maintenance of graves and tombstones of veterans, flags to decorate graves of veterans, Memorial Day activities, annual Veterans Parade, and a Director of Veterans Affairs. All of these budget items are still not in the mayor's budget, even though it was required by state law 16 PA 8061 through 8072. We, Point Man Soldiers Heart Ministry, respectfully request that the Philadelphia City Council work with the mayor to ensure that Veterans Affairs is an annually budgeted program area or category, and that the day-to-day Veterans Affairs of assisted military veterans be made a part of the office of the mayor. This is the most patriotic way the city can acknowledge, appreciate, and respect veterans for their sacrifices we've made for this country. In closing, and in context, for clarity, the Office of the Director for Veterans Affairs is to assist veterans and not to be confused with or substituted for the existing Veterans Advisory Commission that is not required by law and is currently funded and administered through the Office of Council President to advise the City Council as a whole. We support the existence and purpose of the Veterans Advisory Commission in collaboration with the Director of Veterans Affairs and the Veterans Committee at large, Veterans Community at large. However, under this arrangement, there is no financial transparency or accountability to the veterans community. It is the clear duty of the mayor and council to care for the needs of the city's veterans and provide direct services to veterans and their families in the same way the director of the Office of LGBTQ Affairs does for its community. We hope this becomes a patriotic priority of the council and the mayor, and I thank you, and I will answer any questions that may come forth.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Sir,
Good afternoon to President Darrell Clark and to the rest of the City Council members and to those who are assembled here this afternoon. My name is Deacon James E. Abram. I am the founder and president of Point Man Soldiers Heart Ministry. I am a combat wounded disabled American veteran who served in Vietnam 1966-67 with the 1st Cav, Charlie Company, 1st to the 12th. We were one of the most decorated units in Vietnam. I come here today with a different attitude as I represent 88,000 veterans here in Philadelphia County. This time I come in the strength of my God, who is the maker of heaven and earth. I am not here to argue with your decision of not appointing a director of Veterans Affairs. I am finished with that. I come to you today as a representative of God as he used Moses to get his message over to Pharaoh to let my people go. He is going to use me today to tell you, the representative of City Council, and to the Mayor, Jim Kenney, that you are a representative and minister of God. Because in his plan, he ordained 3 organizations to carry out his plan for mankind. Number 1, first it was the family, and I would be the minister and head of my household. Then he ordained the church and the pastor to preach his word of salvation. Then, last but not least, he ordained government and those who represent would govern and pass laws on behalf of its citizens in a fair and impartial way. And as I come to my close, I am reminded of scripture that states, if you have done this to the least of my children, you have done it unto me. My God is almighty. He sits high and he looks low. And he let me know that this is not my battle. It belongs to him, to the Lord. And as I say in my closing, I caution you not to be captured by these evil spirits, for in God's word, he states that we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, and wickedness in high places. As you have made provisions, Mr. Mayor, in your administration for the LGBTs to have a directive for their concerns in your administration, we would hope that you and City Council would be considerate of those men and women who have sacrificed their lives, their limbs, and their minds for this country, to be fully represented in your administration also. And I realize now, my brothers and my sisters, you are not the real enemy, and I'm not your enemy, all right? But those who will want to see us separated and at each other's throats. So I'm going to continue to pray for this body of City Council and for Mayor Jim Kennedy to let the Lord lead you and guide you in the right directions on behalf of 88,000 veterans of Philadelphia County. For as we acknowledge today, on tomorrow at 6 p.m., we're going to be acknowledging the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King on April the 4th, 1968 at 3:30, at 6 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. I still have a dream, and there is hope. Not my will or my wants, my Father, but thy will be done. Peace, shalom, assalamu alaikum. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We really appreciate you.
All right.
For the record, I have.
Yeah, make sure we get a copy. Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Ask for Sean Wilson. Sean Wilson. Liz Torres. Anthony Ciziga. Did I get it? All right, cool. All right. Ian Griffith. Ian Griffith. Can we get Stan Straughter? Get his name right. I know him a long, long time. Huh?
He was already on.
Who?
The guy you said, Straughter?
He's right there.
Oh, okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Please.
Hi, my name is Liz Torres, and I'm here with Anthony Cerzega. We are Temple Law students with the Scheller Center for Social Justice. We have been working closely with community legal services on the ongoing dangers of lead exposure facing renters in Philadelphia. While there are multiple sources of lead exposure, it is especially important to focus on the city's tenants since 46% of residents live in rental units. Lead exposure is a completely preventable health risk, and it has a disproportionate impact on the city's low-income communities of color. Thus, our goal is to make rental units in the city less safe for all Philadelphians, regardless of race and income. 95% of housing units in the city were built before 1978, which means a huge number of Philadelphians are at risk for lead exposure. The medical community agrees that there's no safe level of lead in blood. Lead exposure hurts everyone, but children are at greatest risk because their small, growing bodies make them more susceptible to absorbing and retaining lead. The consequences of lead in a child's blood include developmental problems such as lower IQ and speech and language problems, as well as stomach problems and anemia. Once a child has lead poisoning, the consequences cannot be reversed. Even small amounts of lead in blood can cause serious harm to children of all ages, to pregnant women and their children, and can lead to infertility in adults. Philadelphia has a lead paint disclosure and certification law. It was a positive first step, but we still need to do more to protect Philadelphia families. The current law does not protect children aged 7 and older, nor pregnant women. The current law only requires intervention when a child's blood level reaches 10, but the Center for Disease Control is clear that blood level of 5 requires immediate intervention. The current law also has difficulties with monitoring and enforcement, as landlords and the health department claim they don't always know if children under 7 live there. The current law also excludes public housing and voucher properties from having to provide a lead safe certification. This exclusion leaves hundreds of thousands of Philadelphians, low-income Philadelphians, vulnerable to the harmful impacts of lead exposure and poisoning. Finally, the current law allows landlords to end the lease or pursue eviction against a family that has asked the landlord to provide a lead safe certification, and these families should not be punished for asking their landlord to follow the law. Considering these gaps, my colleague will now share our recommendations for how to strengthen the law in order to best protect the health and safety of all Philadelphians.
Thank you for your testimony.
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Zerzega, and as Liz mentioned, we are Temple Law students with the Scheller Center for Social Justice who've been working with community legal services on the ongoing dangers of lead exposure facing renters in Philadelphia. Philadelphia's current law does not adequately protect our city's tenants, and council can make some easy fixes to the law to improve the health and safety of all our neighbors. I'm going to talk about the 4 straightforward changes to existing law that Philadelphia City Council could make right now to protect our children and families who live in rental properties in Philadelphia. First, the scientific community agrees that lead exposure hurts children of all ages, and that once a child is exposed to lead, the harm is done and no treatments can reverse the effects. Thus, to protect all Philadelphians, we recommend changing the law to eliminate the current requirement that a lead safe certification is only for residences with kids under 7. Second, Philadelphia law needs to match federal guidelines by changing the lead blood level threshold that triggers an investigation to 5 micrograms per deciliter. All children need protection and no level of lead exposure is safe, and by making these changes, Philadelphia will protect everyone from the dangers of lead exposure. Third, nearly 160,000 Philadelphians live in public or voucher housing that is currently exempt from the lead certification ordinance. Philadelphia's lead laws need to apply to these properties and require lead safe certification for these tenants. The practice of excluding these properties places an unacceptable and disproportionate burden of lead exposure on low-income families and families of color in Philadelphia. Fourth, Philadelphia law needs to prohibit landlords from engaging in retaliatory evictions against families. If a tenant asks their landlord to get lead certified, they should not be evicted. This practice is not right. The law needs to include language that prevents landlords from escaping their lead safe certification responsibility and from punishing families for trying to protect their children. During this budget season, we asked City Council to prioritize the issue of lead exposure and poisoning in order to protect our city's families. The effects of lead poisoning are permanent and irreversible. It is up to City Council to do all it can to stop lead exposure from robbing our children of their futures. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Strada.
Good afternoon. My name is Stanley Strada. Thank you. I also want to introduce my colleague, Mr. Vofi Jabate, who is from the African Cultural Alliance of North America. We are here to, I'm also currently the chairman of the African Caribbean Business Council of Greater Philadelphia and the chairman emeritus of the Mayor's Commission of African Caribbean Immigrant Affairs, created by Councilwoman Blackwell in 2005. We're also working with African Cultural Alliance of North America and Philadelphia Southwest District Services. These are 3 organizations that have come together to jointly promote a concept of Africa Town. Africa Town will be a global African diaspora tourism initiative. This initiative will expand trade between Philadelphia and African Caribbean nations, promote tourism with African Caribbean nations, and also create sports and an innovation hub in Southwest Philadelphia. But it will also have a major economic impact on all the communities across the city of Philadelphia. The important thing about Africatown is that most of it already exists. I want to draw your attention to an international article called Philly's Little Africa that was created several months ago to discuss the diversity of the various African communities, African and Caribbean communities that live in the city.
Philadelphia is a major destination for global African diaspora. In West Philadelphia and Southwest Philadelphia, African and Caribbean immigrants living in the neighborhoods have created thriving businesses on commercial corridors along Chestnut, Walnut, Baltimore, Chester, Woodland, Elbourne Avenues, and other places throughout the city. These commercial areas include restaurants, retail outlets, shopping strips, entertainment sites, entrepreneurs, and professionals with offices and a promising technology hub. We, if using our resources properly, and of course some creative thinking, can build on these assets that already exist to create an African town and a major tourist destination. This community is, as I said before, is already known as Philly's Little Africa, and has been recognized in Philadelphia and across Africa as a major destination point for people of African descent seeking a touch of Africa when they come to the United States. In Greater Philadelphia alone, we have over 50,000 African and Caribbean immigrants from 35 different African and Caribbean countries here. We need to build on these existing assets to help promote this program, but also to reach out to the global African diaspora to promote Philadelphia as a destination point for the city. We are currently proposing the design of a master plan to build this Africa town with professionals. I think if you go along Woodland Avenue now, and you'll see the flags from about 35 to 40 African countries along Woodland Avenue that have been identified there, thanks to Akana and Mr. Vofi Jabate. This master plan will also reach out to the 1.4 billion people of African descent to reach them to Philadelphia as a tourist destination. Again, these will create jobs, expand our tourism, and then even out the distribution of tourist dollars that come into the city of Philadelphia to other communities other than the city in downtown district. Some of the structures that will be built in the time frame as a result of this master plan will be an African Caribbean Trade Center. This would be a high-tech office building that could be housed by African and Caribbean countries to show off their wares in the showroom there. The center would also be helping to promote exports from Philadelphia to these African countries. I think probably many of you know, I know that 6 of the fastest growing economies in the world are on the continent of Africa. And Philadelphia is also the home of many Liberians, and we have Liberian office as well as Cameroons seeking to set up offices in Philadelphia as I speak. Another major building will be an African Caribbean Performing Arts Center. You can go almost in any time, any week, any day of the week, I should say, and go to the west and south of Philadelphia and see cultural events from almost many communities here. And where you see Yusuf N'Dour or Salif Keita, it's a major piece. Let me just say, in conclusion, Phase 1 is already taking place. The 50,000 African and Caribbean immigrants are here. They have already invested in the commercial strips and corridors in this community. We are now looking at how to expand that to enhance the opportunity to do business in the city, as well as to recruit tourism and trade to come further into the city of Philadelphia. We are now in Phase 2, hopefully to get the professional assistance we need through the Department of Commerce, and let me just say with the support of Councilwoman Blackwell as well as the Commerce Department, they have put some resources into this effort to begin looking at Woodland Avenue, Chester Avenue as viable commercial corridors.
Thank you.
Let me just say in closing, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. You know, we have Chinatown, we have Italian Garden, we even have a neighborhood, so it's now time for Africa Town. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Are you also speaking, sir?
Yes.
Good evening. What's your name?
Vofi Jabate. Okay. My name is Vofi Jabate.
All right, just wasn't on the list.
V-O-F-F-E-E-J-A-B-A-T-E-H. I am the Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer for the African Cultural Alliance, commonly known as Akana. Akana was founded in 1999 by African, mainly Liberian artists to
stimulate cultural awareness in the Philadelphia region. It was not too long after its founding, we realized that social service and other needs far exceeded our desire to entertain ourselves. Since 1999, Akana has provided legal services, immigration services, emergency food, community development in recent time with the award of contract from the Philadelphia Department of Commerce to manage the corridors of Chester Avenue, Woodland Avenue, and Elmwood Avenue. In doing so, we realized the acute need of the community as follows: that houses were being broken down, houses were blighted, and we begin to change the neighborhood by designing projects as outlined in the chairman's presentation. Therefore, we are proposing that City Council join us in turning the neighborhood of Southwest Philadelphia around. When I came to Philadelphia about 28 years ago, there were too many crimes in those particular areas of Philadelphia. And for the work we've done in working with Councilwoman Blackwell and other stakeholders, the situation had turned around dramatically. We recently hosted flags on the Chester Avenue corridor, and as of today, I was just informed that a $100,000 planning grant has been awarded to Akana to redesign the cultural landscape of Southwest Philadelphia, especially Woodland Avenue. It will only be fair that City Council join us in this effort. You have nothing to lose. All you have is to gain the upgrading of our communities. And what has happened in the past is that we rely solely on the Councilwoman Blackwell, who has done tremendous work to bring our attention to the plight of our people. So we are just extending to all of you, City Council President, and many of you who have worked with us in the past, we want you to just continue to help us so that we can create the African town. There will be many benefits of the African town. The Performing Arts Center, the African Arts and Culture Museum, and community development effort, which is already taking place in Southwest Philadelphia. Thank you for your opportunity.
Thank you for your testimony. Chair recognized, before you leave, Chair recognized Councilman Jones.
Thank you. Very quick, I just want to acknowledge the work that you do. It is the center of the diaspora is in the 3rd Councilmanic District, but it does bleed up a little bit into the 4th, and outside of the city in Melbourne and other areas that have latched on to that cultural strength. So I want to thank you for what you do and what you've done for decades.
Thank you.
And thank the Councilwoman for being the backbone of that movement. Just quickly, how many city sister relationships do we have with the continent of Africa?
We have one sister city with Douala, Cameroon in 1984. I went with Congressman Gray, and we did that in '84. So we just, you went there.
I was there.
We just celebrated our 30th anniversary this year, and we have several partnership cities with, in Cape Coast, Ghana. We have one with Monrovia, Liberia, and Salvador Bahia in Brazil.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognized Councilwoman Blackwell.
Very much. I wanted to thank them. As you all know, these are my brothers. We work so closely together. And all of us know what's been happening on a national level with sending people out of the country. And so part of the work of the Mayor's Commission on African and Caribbean Immigrant Affairs is to help people who have trouble. So we spend a lot of time and a lot of legal time trying to make sure that families are not split, that people aren't sent back to life they haven't known or life where it was bad for them. And these gentlemen are just the backbone of all that we do to make life better. I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Gim.
Yes, I just wanted to add my voice to saying thank you for decades of work, Fofi and Stan, for the tremendous work that you do, and of course partnering with my wonderful colleague, Councilwoman Blackwell, on efforts to highlight the importance of the immigrant experience, recognizing the significant contributions, the link back to our home countries, and why that global environment is very present and alive and vital here in Philadelphia. So I want to thank you and would love to continue to support your work as well. I did have a follow-up question for the two Temple law students. So last year, the city of Philadelphia had a lead advisory task force upon which they made a number of different recommendations. There had been conversations about changing or exploring changes in the lead certification law, and I was wondering if you were familiar with the task force and its recommendations, and whether you felt that the items that you mentioned, I think all of which have been discussed amongst a number of us, how many people it would impact. I think the outstanding questions that we had were a number of our landlords are very, not thrilled with the lead certification. It's an additional cost, obviously. We are concerned about any kind of impact that it has, potentially discriminatory on families with young children, and I think you made that point really well. But secondly, we just need a significant input into our L&I resources in order to be able to cross-check on lead certification. So had you taken a look at the report? Do you have any feedback on some of those concerns?
Do you want me to take it? Yeah, we've heard the landlords, and we believe this is just a cost of doing business. It's not. There are grants out there that can be used to actually do lead remediation if lead is found in a home. To be honest, if a child is lead poisoning, this is irreversible, and we truly believe that cost should not be an issue when it comes. You can't hear me?
I can hear you, but it's not.
Oh, we heard the issues with landlord about cost. We believe this is just a cost of doing business. Lead poisoning is irreversible. A child is like IQ points drop. There can be system failure. This is a big issue, and so we hear the complaints about cost, but we truly believe this is a cost of doing business. You can't rent a home where a child may get lead poisoning, and it's not only a child, it's pregnant women, it's children that are older than 6 years old. So yeah, we believe the recommendations that we put out there can really be beneficial to the city and its residents.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Just wanted to ask Mr. Strada, I don't normally get a chance to thank you in a public format. First, for the great work that you all are doing. I just want to thank you so much for being one of my mentors when I was a youngster growing up in Strawberry Mansion. A lot of people don't know about that relationship, but I just want to publicly thank you so much for giving me some direction way back in the day before I even remotely thought I would be down here. So I really want to say I appreciate so much for you, what you did for me.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Next we have Ana Gomez. Ana Gomez, Enrico Scarelli, and Gary Williams. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Clark and the council members. I'm here on behalf of the tax increase, which the last time I heard was maybe going down to 4%.
Okay. Just state your name for the record.
And they haven't made that decision yet, right?
Right. Now just state your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Gary Williams.
Thank you.
I'm in Kenyatta Johnson's area,
and I'm representing some of the older seniors that are not able to be here. But City of Brotherly Love, that's what comes to mind when I think about raising taxes and this and that, and also accountability. Accountability means that if you're going to ask for soda tax, cigarette tax, and those type of taxes, what type of statement do you give back to the community as to where the money's going? I heard the controller speak about accountability on the radio one day, and I was saying, okay, accountability, but no one knows where the money really goes. And you had the Pope, you had the National Convention, you had all these different activities that have been going on since I've been here, maybe in the last 10 years from New York. And I find that there's no accountability or reports to the public and from each constituent, to the constituents, from the offices of the local politicians to the accountability of that. Also, if you're going to raise the tax, which probably might happen, the school, what is the money for and how is it being divided up into school? I mean, you have African-American children going to school, but they're not getting African-centered culture in the school. So, I mean, what is the purpose of the tax? And what's the breakdown? And that's really why I'm here, to speak about those particular subjects in the issue with taxes. You know, I know taxes have to go up. Then there's the water bill. So you have seniors, they're on a fixed income. You have people coming into neighborhoods that are South Center City, they call it now, where I live. No longer South Philly, because it's beautification and all this. And developers coming in, building houses that have 3 apartments in them and 1 family zone, and some building condos in the same block. You know, I mean, it's kind of funny that all this stuff is going on and no one's paying. Right. But the public, us.
Right, okay. Well, real quick, first of all, I want to thank you for coming down. As council members, we get to take primarily 2 important votes in the budget process. One is to vote, the tax vote, various taxes. Sometimes we keep them the same. Every now and then we raise them, and sometimes we actually lower the taxes, such as the case in the wage tax. And we tend not to like to take the tax vote, but the simple reality is that the other vote we take is the appropriations vote, when we actually vote to provide programs for recreation, programs for job training, all of the good things. So that is ultimately our responsibility. That's what we do. That's what we're required. We're required by the charter each year to have a budget process, and by the end of the fiscal year, we must pass a budget. Difficult, but the reality is that people want services, and you got to pay for them. And more often than not, you have to pass a tax to pay for them, because there's no other revenue source coming to the city, because we are, in fact, a nonprofit. We're not able to do commercials. We're not able to get engaged in commercial products similar to for-profit businesses. So there are a lot of limitations. So our revenue is primarily generated by taxes. That's just simply the way it is. With respect to the use of the particular sugar tax that you referenced, again, it was a difficult vote for a lot of us, because we understood that to some people, when we heard of several business people that were earlier, it is somewhat problematic for them. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, majority members of council decided that providing assistance to early education, i.e. pre-K, is important. I think most people would agree that early education is important. Second, with respects to our libraries and recreation centers, being one of the oldest cities in the country, we have some of the oldest facilities, and they much needed repair. Thirdly, the issue around community schools to deal with all of the challenges associated with our young people and families is something that hopefully we will do. So while we thought they were worthy issues that we needed to address, we voted for a tax that to some people is cumbersome and onerous, but at the end of the day, we hope that the benefits associated with that tax far outweigh the challenges associated with people paying it. But at the end of the day, all those services are for the citizens of the city of Philadelphia.
But that's also how the seniors get pushed out of their communities because their salaries are here and
Yeah.
the taxes are here.
I understand.
So they lose they lose their homes not on a mortgage or anything because they paid maybe $10,000 for their homes. They lose it because of one arrear or two arrears in taxes. That's
Yeah.
kind of crazy. So
I
they
understand.
need to have help, or they need to be able to have resources to be able to know or taught how to go to the local senior center and learn how to keep their properties, not take their properties and then sell it.
Yeah.
And then have other people come in the community. Now, I've seen the water, the water tax is supposed 10.5%. That's a lot.
I agree.
But over increments. So now I'm seeing them dig up the ground and they're fixing the pipes now and then all of a sudden, but that was before they wanted the tax. So now they want the money now after they fixed the pipes up, but they knew they don't have people that come and do these regular investigations on why the water was going to bust, the pipes were going to bust before. I mean, they have people that do these jobs.
Well, that's why it's
But
important.
it's prevention. This is what
Okay.
I'm talking about.
I understand. That's why it's important for us to have these kind of forums where you, the citizen, who basically our bosses, get to come in and talk about your issues. So we take this seriously. Everything that you say is a matter of a formal record. And as we move towards our budget process, we will make decisions based on the input, not only from yourselves, but departments. So we appreciate you coming in. We take what you say seriously, and hopefully at the end of the day, we get to a point where we never pay taxes, but I don't think any of us will be here at that point in time. But the reality is that we understand your concern.
No, really.
And it's our job to try, and we appreciate you coming down.
It's something to be worked out, and accountability is the
we got
most significant part of that.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I just encourage you in closing. A lot of the things that you spoke about, why don't you please go on our website? There's a lot of information on it. We actually probably have one of the best websites in the city, not the city, in the country, as a municipality, as a council, because we've looked at other ones, and ours is awesome. Has some really good information. You're able to go on and access all of the colleagues in terms of things that they're proposing. It's an interactive. They actually have people moving on the website. It's pretty slick, if I say so myself. So I encourage you, go on council's website. You'll see some good information. And it's actually interactive, so if you want to send some information to us, send it to us. We'll respond.
Yeah,
right?
because the people don't feel empowered, and as I'm looking behind me, there's no one here. But there's some tax issues.
They'll be here. All right. Well, thank you, sir.
It's amazing.
We appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. There appears to be no more testimony. We'll call the names. So there are no other speakers on the comment list. There being none, I want to thank you very much for your comments. Committee will stand in recess until Wednesday, April 4th, 2018 at 10 a.m., at which time we will reconvene in room 400, City Hall. Colleagues, thank you all very much.